One of the things that I think is really cool about how Settle has gone about things, and it's been a focus for Decimal since we started, is really looking at partnerships as an avenue of growth. And it's not something I see in a ton of businesses and a ton of accounting firms and a ton of tech companies is that basic initial of, hey, I'm firm in my own identity, I'm firm in what we do. Let's do this together. Let's find great partners. What led to that kind of mentality and direction for Settle, and why has it continued the entire scope of the business?
Yeah, I think for us, the accountant or the bookkeeper, controller, or the CFO, they become such an integral user within the software. And for us, it was definitely we could pitch the founder, but it's their outsourced controller isn't on board, then we're not going to drive the exact value that we need for this business. That's what really led us going deeper into the partnerships with Decimal and others, where it's like we actually need to have them become like the supporter, the key supporter. We need to educate them on like what we could do. And that has led us into the benefit of getting a lot of referrals at effectively low CACs. It's become one of our biggest channels of growth. And that also led us into now we have a different persona that we need to build for. So we have a lot of features that actually are built just for accounting firms that the actual customer, the brand doesn't see. One of the big learnings we had maybe 2.5 years in is just like, we're acquiring this customer, but we're not really getting them on all the software. And why is that? Oh, it's because they're using an outsourced firm that doesn't really know us. We haven't even talked to them. That led us into a big push into actually like creating the accounting firm as like an important channel to our growth. And the other thing is they're able to teach us on like, hey, this is wrong. This doesn't make any sense. Do this, do this. We created a whole customer advisory board just with accountants. They give us the best feedback in the world. That's what led us there. And then it kind of morphed into, our biggest channel. It's where we're doubling down on, tripling down on. And if we can make the accountants heroes of the business, then we think, that's going to lead into future growth for Settle as well.
It's the second time I've heard the thought around making accountants the hero of the business. I don't think many people graduate college and with an accounting degree and think they're getting a cape. It's an interesting kind of mentality of just understanding the role of various people in the business life cycle. When you look at other companies in the space, and there are some big ones, what are some of the ones that you look at as these are good examples of how we want to do it and improve and iterate on it? But how do you look at that?
I think Bill has done an amazing job. I think if we could emulate that, but probably we have to take a different approach, right? Because like they've dominated the market. They have their tentacles in everywhere. So you can't just like crack in. I think you have to do something unique. They kind of like break apart. They work with banks, accounting firms, groups of accountants, and I'm sure they spend tons of marketing, tons of events. So I think, that's one to emulate, but we're a much smaller company, so we have to be very strategic on how we do that. We can't just roll out, here's like $20 million in spend. So that's definitely one that's inspired us. And I think, kudos to them for building a very strong and durable channel for growth.
Well, that's awesome. As you kind of look at the next year or so, what's on the roadmap for Settle, and how do you want to continue to improve the product, improve relationships and partnerships? Like, where are you guys going over the course of the next year or so?
Definitely improving our current products like purchase orders, inventory management. There's a lot of different types of businesses within CPG, so making sure we're fine-tuned to be the best in class for those. Definitely still innovating on the financial product side, growth capital, the ability to purchase inventory before you get paid is just so key in helping these businesses grow, especially when they have something that works. So we'll definitely continue doubling down there. And then the third aspect that will be getting into this year's the accounts receivable side. So we're definitely exploring now, getting ready to build products there. And I think, for a lot of these businesses that are omni-channel, which most of them actually are, the accounts receivable component becomes very key. And we want to make sure we're very fine-tuned for their type of business. So this isn't just like Stripe invoicing that we're trying to build. This is like much better, much fine tuned for our businesses. You know these businesses pretty well. Do you think that's like the right approach?
Yeah, I do. I think the reality is we'll go back to the term operating system that you mentioned earlier. And I think it's so important to embed yourself more in the day to day of a business. Yeah, I had to give a talk to a group of accountants. I was talking to them and I said, one of the fallacies that a lot of accountants have and a lot of bookkeepers is that they are the most important thing. And the reality is that operating system is more important. And I used a very simple example of toast in restaurants. A restaurant provider that uses toast and has an accountant will pick toast over the accountant because toast is embedded in their ordering, their payroll, their ability to accept money. That is more important than the look back, the ability to file taxes, the P&L side of the business. And you have to understand where you are in that hierarchy. And I think what Settle and what other tech companies have the ability to become is that operating system. If you control the cash, if you control the day-to-day operations, and you control the cash in and out, you have embedded yourself into a business and you've become almost impossible to rip out. And when you're an accountant, understanding your place in the hierarchy, which is also deeply then understanding which verticals you work well in so that you can fit into that hierarchy well, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, if toast goes down for a day, like the business is legitimately screwed.